All right, well, welcome and thanks for checking out this team testing format tracker. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on some of the options. There's some bullet points here that you'll view as one line, as one statement, if you want to get some feedback on it. Again, if you have any questions, any feedback, adjustments you think should happen, or critiques, please find me on Twitter at Busted Sleeves, and I would be glad to get some feedback on making the form a little bit better. The big things to take away from it is, first of all, you're going to get it as a view only. So you're going to have to click File, Make a Copy. And this way you'll have your own copy that you'll share with your team. It's not going to be on this original form. And this way this form right here doesn't get messed up by anybody accidentally deleting fields. It's going to talk about formats not to type in, and those would be the auto-populate ones, typically for win, loss, and draw percentages. Those you don't want to type directly into because there's formulas in there, but you might need to adjust the formula if you adjust the number of decks you're tracking. So real quick overview. Your format overview, you're going to list, you can adjust deck names, and you're just going to list whatever decks you care about in the format. The results formulas, don't adjust these directly unless you're adjusting forms. So if you have requests and you're not exactly very familiar with Google Sheets or Excel, you can always send me a message and I can adjust it for you and send you a new copy. But this column right here and your win-loss percentages are auto-populated. What I tried to do was make it where all the formulas that are hidden, so that way you're not seeing a bunch of crazy formulas or the weird no valid numbers aspects make the format look overwhelming. So these right here look blank, but they actually have formulas if you see it across the top. You will have to adjust these formulas if you adjust other things or you include new deck lists. But for the most part, if you're just testing 6 decks within a format, it's going to be your primary information. Over here you have team tasks. This right here, you'll just type in, typically you'll type in your player information. So you'll just type in player 1, you'll type in your name. So for me, I'll type in Sean, and I'll type in whatever deck I'm currently testing. So I might be on blue-white control. And so we might have multiple players testing one blue-white control list. We want to adjust this every time we shift decks. So if I'm testing one deck really thoroughly, I want to keep up with which deck I've currently been testing. So that way my friends who get on to jump on can see the latest results of that list. If nobody is currently marked as testing mono green, then we know that either somebody needs to start testing if we think it's a real deck, or we might be able to replace it with another deck list. But this is just a spot for you to keep up with who's testing what at what given time. You can add date columns if you want to, but for the most part, you want to keep that simple. So looking at the actual lists, we're going to look at mono green as just a simple overview because most of them are the same. It's going to be a really big document, and a lot of the auto populations go all the way across the document. So you won't really need to adjust formulas much unless you create a new opponent matchup to test. So for example, in here, I'm going to adjust it tonight. I don't have a other column, and so you might want to include another column, and that's what I'm going to do. And that way it's on there for all the decks. Just a column for any other matchup that's not within the main. Any deck that I consider worth testing, I created a column for it. So a quick overview of this. This was made pre-GP Orlando, so if there's any new results or any new information, it might not be included. So you might want to adjust the deck list as you go. For in here, I like to keep it separated by CMC so I can keep a visual of my deck, and also it keeps it from being one massive overwhelming list. So we'll have 0 to 1, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, all the way to 6 pluses, and then you have your land in your sideboard. This is all up here just so you can see the current running list or the current lists that are prevalent in the metagame. But we're going to track individual lists underneath our column so we can see how our deck evolves over time. So it's a little bit extra work. You don't have to do that aspect. But for me, I like to see how my deck is evolving. So I know if somebody else is testing a list and they test another card, and I think, why aren't we testing this card? I can go ask that person directly. In here, you want to include your win, loss, and draws. Anywhere where you have a 0 auto-populated, you don't need to type directly into that unless you're augmenting the formula. So if I won my first round, I'll put a 1. And it's going to automatically update the wins here and update the wins here. So I can see my record versus mono green in the mirror match. I can see my deck's results overall across the top. So maybe I lost one as well. So I'll have a 1-1 record. And if I go to my format overview, it auto-populates on the main page to give me my wins, losses, and 50%. It doesn't show me my matchup breakdowns. That's why I need to go directly to that page. And I can view under every single one. So now I'm going to go down to red-black. And I'm going to say I won versus red-black, 1 versus red-black, and 1 versus red-black. This give me kind of like a binary code situation. You put a 1 if you won it, you leave a blank if you didn't. So now my mono green matchup in this hypothetical situation has won 4 matches, lost 1. Against mono green, it's 1-1. Against red black, it's 3-0-0. So I go to my format overview. It's got an 80% win-loss ratio overall with wins and losses. So you don't need to type in anywhere directly. You can just delete them to remove them. If you're doing a ton of testing and you need to restart over, go back and delete your old lists. That's why we include date things. So you're keeping a constant running total of whatever your most recent results are. Within the match breakdowns, I like to keep track of dates because it's going to let me know kind of what the meta was like at that time. I want to keep track of who piloted the deck since multiple of us might be testing the same deck. I want to keep track of who my opponent was. If it's in paper, I'm going to write down their name. If it is online, I'll write down their MTGO name, and this will actually be really useful because I can open back up this forum and do a Control F and search for MTGO opponents, so it kind of gives you a little bit of an edge online. Results, you're going to put this column right here is going to be left blank. It's just a reminder that underneath you're going to put your ones wherever the result was. So we're back to zeros. The last aspects of the lists is you are going to actually typically type out your actual list that you run. You can do the whole 75 or just your main deck. And the reason you want to do this is, say we've done 2 weeks of testing. Well, I want to be able to look back and see certain cards we've tested and go to the pilot and ask how did that card test before I start wasting my time testing another card. For example, right now the list has 3 Thrashing Brontodons. In a week, they might have 0 Thrashing Brontodons in the main deck. So I want to look back at who tested it, where they're listed 3 Thrashing Brontodons in their main deck, and ask them, how were those cards? Why did you take them out? Why are they currently out now? I want to be able to get that information without having to waste my time retesting it. Again, if you are tight on time, or if you're updating this from a mobile device, you might just leave your list blank, or if you're running the same list as the current one above, you can just list see above. The problem is if you adjust your primary list, then that no longer is valid. So you can always just copy these cells and paste them in here. But overall, you want to keep the list updated so you can see the evolutions. On the notes of cards that beat you, this is the part that gets a little controversial. For the most part, a lot of players say you got mana screwed. They want to type mana screwed. Unless it was massively mana screwed. If you played a pretty long game, you really want to take note of the cards that beat you. In this box, you can write full paragraph summary of the matchup, or you could just say, I lost to Nexus of Fate. But you really want to know what happened in that format. So I would say list the cards that beat you. If you got heavily mana screwed, if you mold the 4, those kinds of things, you didn't play a game of Magic, you can put that note in there, but it should be very rarely. On my format overview, I make a broad generalization, or the guide that says, 1 in 100 games, you're going to list an option that wasn't my opponent beat me with certain cards. Because it doesn't help us. We don't get any better if I constantly say, well, I drew 1 too many lands or 1 too few lands, because you should still play games in those matchups if your curve is correct and you're mulliganing correctly. So really what this situation is going to be is you're not going to get any information if you make an excuse. So try to find a reason you lost. Even if there's other aspects, you can list multiple reasons. Let's see, last couple things. I do have a blank copy down here for a blank list. If you're going to make a new deck, you want to right click on it and duplicate. The difference is now you're going to have to go to your format overview and include it, and you're going to have to augment your percentages and copy those as well. So you might need some help with that if necessary. If you need help, please send me a message on Twitter at Busted Sleeves and let me know, and I'll be glad to help you fix your form. But for the most part, you should be good with the 6 lists we currently have in play, counting the blank one that you might adjust. So you might make a copy of this one and then adjust the one that's already in place. So that way that format on the format overview is already included, and your 7th list that you made a duplicate copy of, the copy of blank copy, that one you leave for future decks. If you want to adjust a list, all you have to do is adjust the names. You don't necessarily need to adjust any of the formulas, and just input your new deck lists, and it will adjust, and then go in here and adjust this name. If you want to include other matchups that you think are really important beyond the 5 decks I currently have included, you can copy one of these and include it underneath. The difference is going to be that you're going to now have to go to your format overview, insert that new copy, and that way you have the update. But all you have to do for that is over here under results, you'll put equals, and whenever you put the equals, you'll just go to your page and you'll click up here at the top your wins or losses or draws, and it will auto populate that aspect. But we don't want to do that now. So I will go through and add an other column, and in that column I'm going to include an extra slot above pilot for archetype, and you'll type that in there. But that'll include on every page. So again, if you have questions, if you have feedback, if it's helpful and you appreciate it, please let me know. If it's not helpful and you think it's dumb, you don't have to let me know, but it's up to you. If you have any ways you think it should be adjusted, if it's too detailed, definitely, give me some information on that. But I'll keep this up and it will be shareable. You just have to hit file, make a copy, And you can also hear us talk about how to organize your team testing and how to get the most out of team testing on the Queued the podcast with Brad and Matt. We'll all three get on there and talk about it. So that'll be this week's episode. This is August 12th for anybody who's curious. But I will try my best to update this one real quickly. And then if there's a lot of demand, if I see a lot of people using it, I might update it every time the season rotates with what I can find is the top percentage of the meta. We'll just see how many people actually use it first. So any other feedback, definitely let me know. Give me a follow on Twitter at Busted Sleeves, and you'll be able to see when I go streaming or when I'm in podcasts. And thanks for checking this out.